Hey y'all, today we are going to be installing a manual retractable awning from Recpro. So y'all already know that I really like supplies from Recpro, and this is actually my dad's camper that I'm replacing this awning on. Long story short, his tube was bent and then his arms got all jacked up, and so it was time for a new awning for sure. Now, I've already taken the old awning off. I pretty much just extended it. I got a box cutter and I cut the fabric from the tube, and then I took the arms off and then took the fabric off of the actual top of the camper itself. So now that I've got all these pieces laid out, if you see I pulled out some pieces right there in the middle tube. That's the rail that goes to the top of the awning, and then the little hook that actually pulls the awning out once it's retracted. So make sure to take that out because you don't want that wiggling around in your awning. Now there is already one screw that is pre-installed. You need to take that one screw out, and then the piece that kind of joins these two pieces together, it'll slide out, and then you'll actually have it backwards there. Side note, there is a left and a right, and the left is when you're looking at the camper if it's installed, and the right is if you're looking at the camper and it's installed. So keep that in the back of your mind. And then this will actually slide in. It's got two screw holes, so they are also labeled A, B, C, and D, so you can't really mess it up that bad. So the C lines up with the C on the inside joining piece. The D lines up with the inside joining piece as well. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on each side. So you'll go ahead and put those screws in, rotate it, and then there's 4 more screws right here. Go ahead and install those. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. So I actually did go back and unscrew these, and you'll see this next set right here. I went ahead and put thread lock on it. That doesn't say you have to do that in the instructions, but as I was doing it, I was like, you know what, this would be a good idea to put thread lock on this because I'm never going to take this apart, and it would just make me feel better that it didn't come loose or unscrewed or anything else like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of thread lock on each piece right here and then screw them all in. I didn't over tighten these because 1, I have thread lock on it, and 2, I don't want to strip the screws that are in here. So I really just snug these up pretty good. So next I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other side. Same thing with this one. It's got 1 set screw on it that I take out, and then that middle channel will slide out, and then I can line up these 2 pieces right here. And again, they are labeled, so kind of hard to miss which one is which. This one was a little more difficult to slide in just because it gets kind of heavy once you have all of the pieces put together, but I did eventually get it. So again, there's 2 screws right here, just putting a little thread lock in that. And then I'm going to go ahead and screw those in. And then I can slide this other channel kind of in more and go ahead and connect those 2 pieces. And once those 2 pieces are connected, I'm going to go ahead and put thread lock on those and then go ahead and screw that side in as well. All right, I'll go ahead and speed this side up a little bit because no need for me to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. There is 1, 2, 3 sides on this, so you should have a total of 12 screws on each side. So just make sure you get all 3 of those screwed in nice and tight with a little bit of thread lock. And then we can move on to installing the actual awning fabric itself. Now, before I install the actual fabric itself, I go ahead and put some lubricant in this channel right here that the actual fabric will slide into. I do that because it makes it slide in a lot easier because it's a pretty big fabric, it's crinkled, and it's kind of just a mess sometimes to get in, especially with it being really windy today. I want this thing to slide in like butter, so I put a little lubricant on there and it works great every time. And this kit actually did come with a new channel for this, but I figured it was one less step and this one was still in good condition. So I did not install the new channel that this awning comes with. So here is the awning fabric, also from Recpro. I think this is like a burgundy fade color maybe. I don't know. This is just what my parents picked. So go ahead and open this box. And this is actually a 19-foot awning in case anybody is curious. It's fairly big. I think the largest they sell is 21 feet. So this was definitely a big awning for sure. I have installed so many awning fabrics by myself, and this is actually the first time I've ever had any help doing it, and I will say 17 gazillion times easier. Highly recommend having a second person here. So I take this awning all the way up to the roof and kind of start from one side and work my way over. Doesn't matter really which side you pick, as long as you get the top part in the top rail. And what I mean by that is there's a top and a bottom to this awning, and the bottom typically has 2 nylon pieces that thread into the tube itself. So make sure you have the top and the bottom right, and also the top is typically lighter than the bottom. So I start on one side, I get that nylon piece, and I kind of just thread it through the top rail right there, and just go inch by inch. And you see it's kind of getting caught on the ladder right there. So just make sure it's not getting snagged on anything, because it could definitely rip if you try to force it too much. And the more we get this awning fed through, I'm going to switch positions. My dad is going to feed and I am going to pull. And you see how easily it slides in once you have a little lubrication and you get a little momentum going. It just slides in so nice. And if you notice, it's also super windy today. Definitely not an ideal day to install an awning, but it's the only day that we had because his camper has been here for, I don't know, a week and a half maybe. It's kind of been sitting. I installed a new roof for him because his camper's getting a little iffy there on the roof. So now he's got a new roof and a new awning. Okay, now time for the tube. I'm going to go ahead and move my ladder over and get it out the way. Bring this tube over that we have already assembled. And again, you can come in from either side. I just had more room on that side. So I kind of straddled this right here, and then there's 2 little nylon pieces that I'm fitting into the tube and sliding it in. Now the instructions didn't really say which channels you can slide it into, so I just kind of picked the 2 channels where my release for the awning was facing up in hopes that it would be easily accessible once it was rolled up. Also getting a little lubricant in the channel of this awning to help it slide in a little better. I did the top, and then I also came back and did that second channel as well. After we got a little lubrication, I'm going to go ahead and start sliding it in. I am starting at the front and my dad is at the back there. I'm kind of holding the fabric in place while he gently pushes it in. It's a little hard in the beginning because you see how lumpy it is. It's not like straight, but it does work really well if one person is holding it and the other is pushing from the back. And I kind of got stuck here in the middle. Do you see there's like a little warp right there? Sometimes it can get stuck like that, and then you just kind of pull it back a little bit, re-straighten out the fabric so it's not caved in on itself, and then you can keep pushing. So all in all, this is really the best way to do it. I've tried doing it, putting the tube in and then installing the tube on the fabric or on the actual awning rail itself. That's a whole lot more difficult, especially if you only have one person. But you see how easily it pushes once you get a little bit of momentum. And once that lubrication really starts to just glide the entire thing along. So that, I think, is probably the hardest part, is getting those pieces on. Next, I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's relatively centered. I know where my holes are that the original arms were in, and so I'm trying to center the awning in between the holes where the arms already were. If you're installing an awning from scratch, like you don't have any holes or anything like that, there is instructions, but very specific instructions on what size awning you have and where and how far apart to make your holes and your measurements. But I'm going to reuse the holes that are already here in hopes that it will match up perfectly. So now I'm going back to the box of goodies and I'm going to take out the awning arms. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like this box was like really small. Like they must have done a really good job with this packaging, because I was expecting like a 20-foot long box to get here. I was not expecting the awning to be in 3 pieces. But I'm not mad at how the assembly went, because typically the tubes are all made in 1 piece. But I feel like it's going to be perfectly fine, and you know, I have no complaints about it. So now for the arms, there's a top piece that's actually screwed in. There's multiple different pieces in the awning arm, but I'm going to take that top piece out right there. And I'm going to install that first. And I don't install the whole arm first because Why would I take the entire arm up there when I could just have that one piece? Here is some screws. You'll need the long screws and some Recpro self-leveling sealant. That was not in the instructions, but I highly recommend at least putting something, silicone, whatever, to cover either the holes that are already there or the new holes that you're going to make. You're going to need some type of sealant to seal that hole. So like I said, I am reusing the same holes that were there before. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this awning arm in. I actually put the self-leveling sealant on the inside of the holes. I put the arm on, and now I am hand kind of just making sure that that screw is getting directly into that one hole. And then of course I dropped the other screws, so I got to go back down the ladder and come back up. But I'm making sure I'm getting the screw in the exact same hole that's already there before, because what I don't want to do is just make a bunch of unnecessary holes in the side of the camper, because that's just a spot where it could leak for sure. So the top arm is in. I'm going to go ahead and get the little foot piece right here. So same thing, just getting some of that self-leveling sealant. I'm sealing up any of the gaps or holes that's there before I put this on. And pay attention to the way that it's oriented, because you can actually install it either way, but there's a right way and there's a wrong way. So that little clip faces up like that. So the awning foot actually clips in it just like that. And then same thing, I'm just making sure I get into the same holes that's already there. And then I can go ahead and screw this in and tighten it up. I will say my only complaint about the bottom one is the bottom screws are shorter than the top ones, and it wasn't long enough to grip the framing of the camper, so we ended up putting longer screws about the same size as the ones in the top. So just put that in the back of your brain if for whatever reason the bottom doesn't catch like ours did. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the rest of the arm. Now, once this arm is up in place and clicked in, now would be the time to go ahead and mark where that awning stop would be. It's like a little bolt with a nut, and it shows basically where the awning arm needs to stop, so every time you take it down, it won't fall back down. So that would have been the time to do it, but I'll talk more about that later in the video because I forgot and did it at the end. So the left side of the awning arm is installed. I'm going to go ahead and do the right side. Again, same thing, self-leveling sealant, top of the arm, making sure that the screw holes are, the screws are going into the same screw holes, and running it in with my drill, not being super tight because you can strip these out. So keep that in the back of your head. You want these snug, but you don't want to strip out the hole that's there. Same thing for this foot. Also, there is a left and a right on the awning arms, so pay attention to which side you apply to which. The actual arm part that you attach to the top, like I just did, it doesn't matter which side it goes on, but there is a left and a right to the rest of the arm assembly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of this arm right here. As you can see, that skinny piece in the middle kind of slides up, and then there's a little nut right there you can tighten if you don't want it to go anywhere. And then I can grab the arm and kind of move it up and click it in to where I want it to go. So now that we've done that, and I know that everything looks like it's supposed to line up like I want it to in the spacing that is all the holes that were already pre-drilled there from the other hardware, I'm going to go ahead and attach the tube and see what happens. So I obviously don't want to be way up in the air in case something goes wrong. So I am lowering these awning arms down, and the kit actually comes with stakes. And so I'm staking the foot into the ground and bringing it as low as possible. Don't want to be on a ladder. I have learned this the hard way. If something goes wrong or something becomes unwound, you don't want to be way up in the air. You want to be as close to the ground as possible so you can control it. Because one thing you don't want to do is have your awning spin out of control, and then it's just a whole mess and you got to rewind it. And anyway, it's a whole thing. Also, I totally just like dropped the awning arm in right there, and then it bounced back on itself, and I laughed at myself. So just a reminder, don't take yourself too seriously. Everybody makes mistakes, and it's okay. The important thing is you got to keep going, and you don't let that stop you from continuing whatever else you're doing. And in this point, I hope it doesn't, because you're almost done. All right, so to attach these two pieces, there's actually a bolt and a nut that's already pre-attached to the tube itself. You take that out and you put it into, there's like a little channel, and it slides directly through the arm, through the tube, and out through the other side of the arm. And I actually installed this wrong the first time. You see my dad's coming over here and he's like, "You did that wrong." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so I put the nut facing where my drill is right now. And the problem with that, this is the dad knowledge I'm giving you for the day. He said you want gravity to work with you. So I switched it around so the bolt comes from the back and the nut attaches in the front right there. That way, in case the nut comes off, you still have gravity working with you and your awning won't completely fall apart. And see, this is why I keep my dad around, because you learn something new every day. All right, so now that both sides are installed, I can go ahead and get those stakes out. I'm going to put the awning back in the assembly right there, back in the foot, and then bring the arm down. So I'm going to put a little bit of tension on this awning fabric. Now, up until this point, I still have the pins installed, so this is supposed to be pre-tensioned. So don't take those pins out until it is time to let go of the tension on the awning itself. So we're almost there. One more quick thing is the fabric had the little nylon pieces sticking out, and he didn't want them to get caught when he was rolling it up, so he just trimmed off those pieces. Now, coming back to the set screw, I should have done it when I told you before, but I didn't. So I'm measuring the distance from the top of the awning to the bottom of the foot, and I'm kind of just measuring from the top where the tube is all the way down to where that foot is again, and seeing how long it is, and I'll put my set screw where I think the distance should be. So this set screw is just a little screw with a nut on it, and it basically keeps the awning arm from going down anymore. So originally, if you would have the awning up and you didn't have this set screw, it would just fall down all the way, and you don't want that to happen. You want it to be basically the length from the foot all the way up to the top. And so you put this in there as kind of a set as to where you want the awning arm to stop, so it looks nice and flush. All right, so it's finally time to try it out. So we'll see how this lines up. Sometimes I get awnings that line up great the first time, and sometimes I get awnings where I have to do a lot of adjustments. It really just depends on how well an awning was installed previously, or how good my measurements were and I paid attention. So my dad just pulled his side of the tension pin that's right there, and I'm pulling mine. But there's a lot more tension on this than I anticipated, so you kind of have to grab it and roll it up like my dad did there to take the tension off and then pull the pin out. After that, you can flip the little switch. It kind of lets the tension go on it, and then it should have rolled up, but it didn't. So we were standing there like, did we do something wrong? I'm not really sure. I've never installed a pre-tensioned unit before. I've always had to take the tension off and do it that way. And so it's no big deal, because we're just going to add a little bit more tension to it. And if you have this problem, or if you need to add more tension or less tension to your awning, you're going to know how now. So we're just going to cover everything in this video. All right, so first things first, we went ahead and pulled it back out and we put that pin back in. So right now we can take the bolts and the nut out that we already pre-installed. You see how windy it is? It's moving my camera. Not ideal, but this is where we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. And then you see my dad is holding it there. I'm getting a screwdriver and sticking it in. I took that pin out right there, and then I put the screwdriver, actually no, I put the screwdriver in, took the tension off, took the pin out, and then I can start adding more tension on it. Now, whatever way you wind it is going to be the direction that it winds up. So I'm winding it kind of in because I want it to wind in. And when I was doing this, I know what tension on an awning feels like, and I only did 5 rotations because it felt like there was a lot of tension on this spring, especially for how much tension it didn't have when I rolled it up. It just seemed a little weird to me to go ahead and do the full 12. And maybe I should have, based on how it rolled up. It didn't have a lot of tension on it like I would have liked it to in the end. but it also just did feel like it had a lot of tension on that spring already. So we have to do the same thing to the other side. So again, take it off, put the screwdriver in, take the tension off of that, pull the pin out, and then wind it up 5 times in the same direction. It's important you have a starting point so you know what a full rotation is, because you don't want one side to be wound more than the other side. And then you put the, you line it back up, you put the screw and the nut back in, or the bolt and the nut back in, and then we can put the arms back on and try rolling it up one more time. Also, don't forget to attach the strap that actually pulls the awning out, that kind of sits in the middle of the tube right there. Now, once it's rolled up, you can see that it's kind of crooked to the left a little bit. So the way I'm going to fix that is to get the ladder out and climb up to the top and actually pull the entire awning from the top rail. I'm going to pull it right. So that's going to bring the awning arms and the fabric itself right a little bit, and it should correct itself. Now, after I fixed that issue, this kit didn't come with screws for this, but there's supposed to be screws that go from the top rail into the nylon of the fabric. So make sure to put that in so your fabric doesn't move left to right. One more adjustment needed. I needed to bring the awning arm down a little bit. So I'm moving it down 1 notch right here. That way it sits perfectly in the channel. All right, so I rolled it in one last time. Let's see how it comes out. So flip the tab right there, pull it out, and it comes out nice and straight. And then I can go ahead and come over to the right side, hit the release, and it winds up nice and perfectly and straight. Yay! I hope that's been helpful. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if this is something that you would do. Have a great afternoon.